Ask anyone who owned a computer in the 90s what a Packard Bell was, and watch them wince before they answer. They called it Packard Smell. They called it Packard Hell. They will tell you it was junk, that the box smelled like cheap plastic the second you opened it, that theirs died in a year. And every single one of them is describing the machine that outsold every other computer in America. In 1995, in the country that invented the personal computer, the best-selling PC was not the one built in a garage by two men named Steve, and it was not the beige giant from Texas. It was this one, the one nobody will admit they owned. For one strange year, Packard Bell put its name on more American computers than anyone alive, cornered 13% of the whole market, beat Compaq, beat IBM, beat everybody, and then walked out of the United States entirely and never came back. And most people who had one in their house do not even know it was number one. They just remember the smell. That is the story. Not a company that failed because nobody bought it. This one failed because everybody bought it, and everybody was disappointed. And a brand can survive almost anything except a whole country deciding at the same time that it got burned. Every week on this channel, we take a machine that lived in your house and then disappeared, and we find the exact moment the trust broke. If that is your kind of story, the like and the subscribe keep them coming. Because this one broke in a way none of the others did. It sold itself as your first computer, brought millions of ordinary families into the digital world for less money than anyone else asked, and then sold those same families a promise it could not keep. To understand how a company gets that big and that hated at the same time, you have to go back further than most people ever guess. Because the name did not start with computers at all. Packard Bell was a radio company. In the 1920s, in Los Angeles, two men in the wireless business built home radios under that name, and for a generation, Packard Bell meant a wooden console in the living room, the thing the family gathered around before television existed. Through the war, it made electronics for the military. Then the brand faded, got bought, got shelved, and by the 1980s, it was a dead name owned by a company that had no use for it. That is where the real story begins. Not with an inventor, with a name for sale. In 1986, three entrepreneurs, all born in Israel, led by a man named Benny Alajem, went looking for a way into the exploding home computer business. And they made a bet that a lot of people thought was strange. Instead of inventing a brand from nothing, they bought an old one. They acquired the dormant Packard Bell trademark from its owner for less than $100,000. A famous American name, decades of trust in one word, for the price of a nice car. Think about what they were buying. Not a factory, not a patent, not an engineer. A feeling. The vague, warm sense, sitting in the back of an older shopper's memory, that Packard Bell was a name from a gentler time. A name you could hand your money to. They bought that feeling wholesale and prepared to sell it back one computer at a time. And that was the entire strategy. To a family standing in a store in 1987, unsure and a little scared of these expensive new machines, the name Packard Bell sounded like something their grandparents had trusted. It sounded American. It sounded safe. The men who bought the name understood that a scared first-time buyer does not reach for the best computer. They reach for the one that feels familiar. And then they did the one thing that made the whole company work. They made it easy. In an era when a new computer arrived as a pile of parts and a manual thick as a phone book, when you had to know what a config file was before the thing would even run, Packard Bell shipped its machines with the software already loaded and ready. You took it out of the box, you plugged it in, and it turned on and worked. For a family who had never owned a computer and was terrified of breaking a $2,000 purchase, that was everything. No other maker courted the total beginner the way this one did. They were not selling to the hobbyist or the office. They were selling to your mom. And they sold them where your mom already shopped. This is the second thing the giants missed. While the serious computer companies fought over office contracts and specialty stores, Packard Bell put its machines in the places regular families walked through every week. Warehouse clubs, department stores, the electronics aisle next to the televisions and the microwaves. A working family could put a computer in the shopping cart next to the groceries, at a price hundreds of dollars below the fancier brands. The company grew at a speed that did not look real. By 1994, it was pulling in around $3 billion a year and had become the third largest maker of personal computers in the entire United States, behind only Compaq and IBM. From a dead radio name to the metal stand in under a decade. Then came 1995, the top of the mountain. That year, Packard Bell passed Compaq and became the #1 seller of personal computers in America, holding 13% of the market after growing 37% in a single year. Let that number settle. In the middle of the decade, when the internet arrived in the American home, when a whole nation was buying its first machine, more of those families brought home a Packard Bell than anything else on the shelf. This was the computer of the American living room, the one under the biggest number of Christmas trees. Picture the morning. A family of people who had never touched a computer in their lives gathered around a box and wrapping paper, a little afraid of the expensive thing inside, choosing this name because it sounded like something safe. The one a generation of kids first typed on, first heard a modem scream on, first got online through. It was, for that one shining year, the most popular computer in the country that invented the thing. More of those first mornings happened around this machine than any other. Remember that, because almost nobody does. It is the machine no one admits they owned. And here is where the whole thing was already rotting from the inside. At the exact moment, it looked like a king. To hit those prices and win that shelf, Packard Bell squeezed every cost it could find, and the way it built the machines showed it. Ask the people who worked in that world back then, and they tell the same story. The company bought parts from whoever would sell them cheapest in volume, so two computers with the same model number stamped on the front could be completely different machines inside. Different drives, different chips, whatever was cheap that month. There was no single Packard Bell under the hood. There was a name on a box and a lottery of components behind it, and a lottery is fine until the ticket comes back bad. The tickets came back bad in numbers the industry had never seen. As early as 1992, the company itself acknowledged that 17% of the computers it sold were returned by customers, at a time when the normal rate across the industry was somewhere between 5 and 8%. Read that again. Nearly 1 in 5 machines came back. 2-3 times the failure everyone else lived with. The most popular computer in America was also, quietly, the one its own buyers hauled back to the store more than any other. And when your machine died in the den in front of your kids, on the taxes you were trying to finish, you did not care about market share. You remembered the smell of the plastic, and you told every neighbor you had. That is how a company becomes the best seller and the punchline at the same time. That is how it earned the nicknames. Packard Smell. Packard Hell. People do not invent cruelty like that for a brand they feel nothing about. They invent it for a brand that let them down after they trusted it. And what made the anger stick was that these were the buyers least equipped to fix it. The whole pitch had been aimed at the beginner, the family that had never owned a computer and did not know a driver from a doorstop. So when the machine froze, or the drive stopped reading, or the thing would not boot on a school night, the same people the company had courted were the ones who had no idea what to do. They had bought the friendly name precisely so they would not have to understand the guts of the machine. And now the guts of the machine, that lottery of mismatched cut rate parts, had failed them, and they were staring at a dead beige box with a report due in the morning and no one to call who could make it turn back on. The company had sold them safety. What it delivered, too often, was a first taste of the specific helpless dread of a broken computer you paid real money for and do not understand. But the returns were not even the wound that killed it. The wound was what the company did with the machines that came back. Retailers of that era let people return a computer for almost any reason, and mountains of used machines flowed back to the maker. And instead of scrapping them, Packard Bell took working parts out of returned computers and put them into new ones going out the door. Recycled the guts of a machine somebody rejected into a machine somebody else was buying as brand new. That, on its own, was arguably legal, and other makers did versions of it too. That was never the real scandal. The scandal was that they did not tell you. You paid full price for a new computer and had no way to know that inside the case sat components pulled from a unit another family had already sent back. State attorneys general came for them, not for the recycling itself, but for the silence around it, the failure to disclose what was in the box you were sold as new. In the fall of 1996, Packard Bell settled with a group of states, agreeing to pay $3.5 million and, from then on, to print a notice right on the carton when a new machine might contain used parts, and to cover those parts under the full new product warranty. $3.5 million was pocket change for a company doing billions. The money was never the point. The point was the sentence they now had to print on the box. The most trusted sounding name in the store, the one that felt like your grandparents', now had to warn you in writing that what was inside might not be entirely new. The whole illusion, the familiar safe American name, cracked right there on the cardboard. And once a country decides a brand burned it, the math turns fast and cruel. The machine no one admits they owned started to become the machine no one would buy again. The same families who had made it number one in 1995 had a story about it by 1997, and the story was not kind. And the stories traveled the way bad stories always do, faster than any advertisement, across fences and phone calls and the break room at work. One burned buyer warning the next. Meanwhile, the price war it had started was now eating it alive. Compaq slashed prices from above. A brutal new discount brand called E-Machines undercut it from below with computers even cheaper. Squeezed on both ends, in a business where it earned almost nothing on each sale to begin with, the losses came like a tide. Across 1997 and 1998, the company bled more than $1 billion. $1 billion. Gone. From the company that had just been the most popular computer maker in the United States. By then, it was no longer an American company deciding its own fate. To survive its hunger for cash, Packard Bell had sold most of itself to two giants overseas. The Japanese electronics company NEC and the French firm Groupe Bull had poured money in and taken control, until NEC alone owned around 88% of the thing. The name on the box still said Packard Bell, still sounded like a Los Angeles radio from 1926, but the company behind it was now run from Tokyo and answering to losses it could not stop. And the owners in Tokyo looked at the American market, looked at the reputation, looked at the red ink, and made the coldest decision of all. They left. In 1999, into the year 2000, NEC pulled the Packard Bell name out of the United States entirely. No going out of business sale on Main Street, no dramatic bankruptcy in the headlines. The brand that had been number one in America 4 years earlier stopped shipping computers to the country that had made it number one. The machines vanished from the warehouse club aisles. The name came off the shelves. And here is the strangest part. It was so quiet, so absent of any funeral, that most of the millions of families who had owned one never noticed it was gone, and never knew it had ever been first. It did not die in front of the country. It slipped out the back door while the country was already busy hating it. But the name did not die. It just left. In Europe, where the reputation had not curdled the same way, the Packard Bell brand kept going, still owned by Ness, selling computers to households across the continent for years. The Americans who had made it famous never got a goodbye. The name that had lived in their living rooms now belonged to someone else, in another language, on another continent. And no one thought to tell the people who had loved it first. And this is where we get to the question the whole internet still asks about this company, the one people type into a search bar to this day. Who owns Packard Bell now? The answer is a chain of hands the original buyers never saw coming. Ness eventually passed the European operation along, and in the end, the whole Packard Bell name landed at Acer, the Taiwanese electronics giant, in the years after 2007. The great American living room computer, the #1 seller of 1995, became a European budget label owned by a company in Taiwan. The men who bought a dead radio name for less than $100,000 built it into the most popular computer in America and then sold its bones across 3 continents, and almost nobody at home was watching when it went. So what killed it? Not that it was cheap. Cheap was the whole gift. Cheap is what put a computer in front of families who could never have afforded one otherwise. And that was a genuinely good thing, the thing the company should be remembered for. What killed it was that it took the trust in a famous old name and spent it faster than it could earn it back. It promised a scared first-time buyer that this machine was safe and familiar, and then it filled the box with a lottery of cut-rate parts, hid used components inside computers sold as new, and let 1 in 5 of them come back broken. It sold identity, the comfort of a name your grandparents trusted. And then it sold that identity out, 1 recycled hard drive and 1 undisclosed part at a time, until the name that meant safe came to mean junk, and a whole country of former owners learned to wince instead of smile. The machines were disposable. What it threw away that it could never rebuild was the belief that its name meant something. And that is why it is almost funny, in a haunting way, what happened just days ago. In July of 2026, in South Africa, the Packard Bell name switched back on. Not on a computer, on a phone. A brand new smartphone called the Daytona G16 Pro, sold under the name of a Los Angeles radio company from 1926 that most of the world buried decades ago. And the way they announced it is the part that will not leave you. The launch ad was, in their own words, an industry first, fully generated by artificial intelligence, from the script to the visuals to the music. A machine made commercial for a phone wearing the name of a dead computer. Its theme song is called Ring My Bell. A ghost of a brand, revived by a machine, to sell a machine, singing about ringing a bell that stopped ringing in America a quarter century ago. Somewhere tonight, there is a middle-aged person who has no idea that their family's first computer was, for 1 year, the most popular machine in the entire United States. They do not remember the market share. They remember the beige tower that ran hot. They remember the disk drive that jammed on a school night. They remember the smell of the plastic and the morning it finally quit, and the promise they made that they would never buy that brand again. They kept it. The whole country kept it. That is the thing about a name. You can buy a dead one for less than $100,000 and make it the biggest in America in 10 years. But once you teach millions of people that the name on the box was lying to them, no price war, no discount, no clever ad, not even one written by a machine, ever fully buys the trust back. The name still exists. It is still for sale, somewhere on something, sung to now by an artificial voice in another hemisphere. It is just not the thing people believed in anymore. One last thing before you go. Packard Bell got into your house by feeling safe, and then broke that feeling from the inside. But there was another brand from that same beige era that broke its promise the opposite way. A machine people did not distrust, but worshipped. That stood for the absolute cutting edge, the fastest thing money could buy, and then died anyway. That story is next. And if a Packard Bell was the first computer your family ever owned, do not be embarrassed. Tell me about it. Tell me what it smelled like, and whether it ever came back to life. I read every one.